Welcome to the Fire Management Assistant Grants Program webinar presented by FEMA's Training, Design, and Development section. This is part one of a 5-part series. This presentation of the Fire Management Assistant Grants Program, otherwise known as FMAG, is intended as an overview, and throughout the presentation you will be directed to other areas where additional information will be provided, including the Fire Management Assistant Grants Policy Guide, the Code of Federal Regulations, and the Stafford Act. The FMAG slide presentation consists of 5 parts. Part 1 is an overall introduction to the FMAG program. Part 2 will review the declaration request process. Part 3, overview of the grants management, including roles and responsibilities. Part 4, FEMA's overall general eligibility considerations. And in Part 5, FEMA's eligibility of categories of work. So the goal of this presentation is to promote consistent, effective, and efficient Fire Management Assistant Grant Program implementation by strengthening FEMA's personnel knowledge of the FMAG policies, procedures, and grants management. To accomplish this, we will identify the types of assistance the Fire Management Assistant Grants Program can provide, review the Fire Management Assistant Grants Program administrative and documentation requirements, review criteria, steps, and sequencing of key activities needed to apply for a Fire Management Assistant grant, and identify the basic elements of the Fire Management Assistant Grants Program. Also, we will review the Fire Management Assistant Grant Declaration process, ensure compliance with the FMAG eligibility considerations or criteria, identify relevant statutes, policies, and related program guidance, and also identify the 3 categories of work applicable for a Fire Management Assistant grant. The Fire Management Assistant Grant Declaration process differs significantly from the emergency and major disaster declaration processes. The regulations published in 44 CFR Section 204 govern the FMAG program and detail the program's procedures and eligibility requirements. Additional information will be provided in the Fire Management Assistant Grants Program and Policy Guide dated 2021 and 44 CFR Section 204. We will review them for additional information. So the President is authorized to provide assistance, including grants, equipment, supplies, and personnel to any state, local government, tribal nation, or territory for the mitigation, management, and control of any fire on public or private forested land or grasslands that threaten such destruction as would constitute a major disaster. Eligible firefighting costs include but are not limited to equipment and supplies, labor costs including travel and per diem, limited pre-positioning costs approved by the regional administrator, emergency work, temporary repairs of damage caused by firefighting activities, and mobilization and demobilization activities. So what's the purpose of the FMAG program? The purpose is to provide supplemental grant assistance to state, tribal, and local governmental agencies for the mitigation, management, and control of any fire on public or private forested land or grassland that threatens such destruction as would constitute a major disaster. So based on this statement here, it's important to pay attention to the specific wording in these statements. And we want to mention how that relates to key FMAG considerations that we will be covering in these presentations. So the word supplemental or supplemental grant assistance captures the idea that federal assistance is designed to supplement state and local efforts when their resources are overwhelmed, and ties into the point that there is a cost share and that specific eligibility criteria establishes boundaries on the activities and costs that may be funded under the Fire Management Assistant Grants Program. State, tribal, and local governmental entities captures the idea that only specific entities are eligible to receive a fire management assistance grant. Major disaster captures the idea that not all fires are of a nature or severity that qualify for federal assistance, and ties into the point that specific criteria must be met for federal assistance to be provided under the Fire Management Assistance Grants Program. It's also important to clarify that the term mitigation is defined in this content as the necessary action to minimize the damage caused by a federally declared fire. It is not defined as mitigation measures to prevent future fires or other actions normally associated with FEMA's PA program, Section 406, mitigation. The Fire Management Assistance Grants Program helps cover the costs for mitigation, management, and the direct control of any fire on public or private forested land or grassland. This grant has a cost share of 75% federal and 25% non-federal. Also, unlike the Public Assistance Program, the federal cost share for FMAG is set and cannot be increased based on extraordinary circumstances. So let's take a look at the governing documents for the Fire Management Assistance Grants Program. The documents governing the Fire Assistance Grants Program are based on a hierarchy of statutes, regulations, and policies. Together, the governing documents provide the framework for the FMAG program, establishing when, how, and to whom federal assistance may be provided. Consistent use and understanding of the governing documents across fire declarations, states, and FEMA regions is critical to achieving consistent FMAG implementation. On the following slides, we're going to describe statutes, regulations, and policies in more detail and identify those that are applicable to the FMAG program. So the Stafford Act, Section 420, Fire Management Assistance. The FMAG replaced FEMA's Fire Suppression Assistance Program when Section 420 of the Stafford Act was amended by the Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000 and is in effect for all fires declared on or after October 30th, 2001. It authorizes the President to provide fire management assistance to state and local governments, and it requires coordination with state and tribal forestry departments, requiring rules and regulations to be written to carry out the FMAG program. Here's a copy of the policy guide. If you go to FEMA.gov, go to the search box and type in FMAG, FMAG, it will take you to this site where you'll find all the documentation that is needed for a fire management assistance grant, and also a copy of the policy guide. So federal statutes are laws passed by U.S. Congress and signed by the President. They cannot be changed or waived by FEMA or any other government agency or official. The FMAG program is authorized by Section 420 of the Stafford Act and authorizes the President to provide fire management assistance to state, tribal, and local government. Requires coordination with the state and tribal departments of forestry. Also allows the President to provide essential assistance under Section 403 of the Stafford Act. Allows Section 420 to provide assistance for 404 hazard mitigation assistance, and requires the establishment of rules and regulations to carry out the program. The Code of Federal Regulations is a codification of the general and permanent rules and regulations published in the Federal Register by the departments and agencies of the federal government. Chapter 1 of Title 44, Emergency Management and Assistance, contains the regulations issued by FEMA, including those related to implementing the Stafford Act. Regulations are rules designed to implement a statute based on an agency's interpretation of the statute and have the full force and effect of law and must be complied with once they are implemented. Part 204 directly applies to the FMAG program and details the program's procedures, eligibility, and requirements. Also, 44 CFR Part 13, the Uniform Administrative Requirements for Grants and Cooperative Agreements to states and local government contains additional regulations regarding grant administration and allowable cost requirements. The FMAG Program and Policy Guide applies to incidents declared on or after June 30th, 2021. Policies are written to clarify or provide direction regarding the applicability of a statute and regulations to specific situations. Also provides clear and concise policy language to minimize multiple interpretations. Previously, the FMAG policies and guidance were intermixed with those for FEMA's Public Assistance Program. However, those two programs have distinct differences, so separating them provides for administrative clarity and reduces confusion regarding the applicability of the policies and guidance. Also, there's a copy or photo of it here. Again, FEMA.gov, in the search box, type in FMAG. It will direct you right to where you can get a copy of this. So who's involved in the FMAG process? So the following terms are used to describe the state, tribal, and local governmental agencies that are directly involved in the FMAG process. So let's start with the grantee. The grantee is the government to which the grant is awarded, which is accountable for the use of the funds provided. Generally, the state is the grantee. However, after a declaration, a tribal government may choose to be a grantee, or it may act as a sub-grantee under the state. The applicant, a state or tribal government submitting an application to FEMA for a fire management assistance grant, or a state, tribal, or local government submitting an application to the grantee for a sub-grant under the approved fire management assistance grants program. The recipient, state or local government, receiving an FMAG program grant and is responsible for administrating the grant. So here's a graphic on the life cycle of the FMAG program. It's important to look on the first arrow up here. For pre-FMAG confirmation, what this is requiring the states to have an approved FEMA state agreement, a state mitigation plan, and a state administrative plan in place and approved prior to a declaration for an FMAG to be approved. If these are not in place at the time the request comes in, the requirement is for these documents to be put in place and approved, and then there could be the approval for the declaration. If these documents are in place at the time of the event, uncontrolled fire or the imminent threat of a fire, our governor will request for an FMAG declaration. The FMAG declaration is approved by the regional administrator. Documentation that is required for the process, the recipient, project worksheets are filled out. Project worksheets approved by the regional recovery and analysis, and FEMA funding to the recipient. It's important when we talk about project worksheets, as noted before, that the FMAG grant process differs from the public assistance grants process, where a public assistance grant is developed in grants manager. A fire management assistant grant is provided using 1991 project worksheets, are developed by FEMA staff and uploaded directly into EMI at this time. So it's important to understand the difference between an FMAG grant and a public assistance grant. The processes are totally different. That's it for part one. We discussed the Fire Management Assistant Grants Program, the purpose. We reviewed the governing documents, and we reviewed the FMAG processes. Part two, we will do a review of the declaration process. Hope you take your time and take a look at part two and the webinars that are available based on FMAG. That, I want to thank you for watching, and hopefully you learned something and moving forward. Thank you.
If you are working with any documents used for a FEMA grant, you are responsible for safeguarding personally identifiable information, or PII. PII refers to anything that can be used to directly or indirectly identify an individual. Some examples of PII are names, addresses, social security numbers, and financial account information. This type of information must not be uploaded into Grants Portal or Grants Manager. To report corruption, waste, fraud, abuse, mismanagement, and/or misconduct, contact the Department of Homeland Security Office of Inspector General by phone at 1-800-323-8603 or via the website or mailing address listed on the screen now. Procurement requirements are among the most complicated parts of the PA grant process, and noncompliance can result in deobligation of funding. Please make sure that you are following FEMA's procurement guidance for recipients and subrecipients. Federal requirements for procurement and contracting are described in 2 CFR Part 200. The Procurement Disaster Assistance Team, or PDAT, offers some training and tools on their website, www.fema.gov/grants/procurement. For technical assistance with Grants Portal or Grants Manager, you can call the PA Grants Portal Grants Manager hotline at 866-337-8448. National hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. The hotline can also be reached by email at FEMA-recovery-PA-grants@fema.dhs.gov. We have many other recorded webinars and tutorial videos available on our YouTube channel. You can find them by searching for FEMA Grants Portal on YouTube or by navigating to the Support Center in Grants Portal or Grants Manager.
Thank you for watching.